Hey everyone! So a lot of you guys really enjoyed my last tutorial on how I painted the jacket right on top of the figure that I'm currently painting using oil paints. So I figured I would do another tutorial for you guys on how I paint a white shirt. So the figure that I'm painting here is a child, so all of the proportions will be much smaller, as you can see. And it is oversized as well, so it won't be form-fitting to the figure either. For some context, this is my current commission that I'm doing right now. So all that I did was, at the very beginning, I went through the entire figure with just white. Many artists will tell you to never do anything straight from the tube, but in this case, it really will not be an issue, I promise. If you're doing a different color, then I would probably suggest a different method, but for white shirts specifically, this works well. And then to map out all of the little creases in the shirt, I'm just going through with Payne's Gray. It's very important to pay close attention to where the figure stands so that you know exactly where the creases will fold and where they don't. I am using a photo reference for this, so I do have like a lot of a clear vision of this, but either way, like to make sure that you're mapping it out in the proper spots, I am ensuring that I'm picturing how this figure is standing. Since a lot of the background of this piece is like gray and blue toned, Payne's Gray is the perfect color to use for all of the shadow. I'm just using different variations of Payne's Gray, adding a little bit more Payne's Gray or a little bit more white into it to get the different like gradient. And I do keep about like 3 brushes in my hand all at the same time. One for blending, one is a very fine-tipped brush that I'm using to blend out all of the details. Another one is the one with the dark color. So I've got a different brush for the light color and the dark color and then a blender. And usually I keep about 2 blenders on hand at once, just because if one of them has a little bit of a darker color dirty on it, then I want to use the lighter one, etc. It really doesn't matter, just do it however you like, but I do prefer using multiple brushes. The shirt is a little bit wrinkly, so I'm noticing that if this child were to be sitting, that's probably why they've got so many folds in that front lower section. And another thing that I'm also paying close attention to is how there's a small seam along the bottom of the shirt and along the bottom of the sleeves as well, that I am mapping out using just a little bit of white and then going on top of that with a slight amount of a darker shade just to make like the absolute mildest shadow there. And you will notice that a lot of the creases and a lot of the extra shadows that I'm going to be putting are on the lower part of the body, just because you're moving, you're bending your arms, you're sitting, and that'll all create creases in a shirt. But closer to the chest area and near the neck, there are going to be a lot less creases. You can see I'm still like working my way up, so it's not going to be completely flat anywhere. You'll always have a little bit of shadow, but it'll be a lot less. There's many ways to paint clothing, and you were able to see in my last video that I actually used a lot of like scratching in the different variations of color in the jacket on the upper figure, but in the one lower down here, I'm finding that smudging in doesn't really work so much, so the paint is slightly like, I make all of my paint extremely thin. However, on this white shirt, I do have it slightly thicker because instead of like smudging in all the colors, like basically etching in the color and where the shadows are, I'm instead going in with little very, very, very thin layers of white and Payne's Gray. And a little goes a long way here with the shadows. Like, I am putting the absolute slightest amount of the dark tone, and I'm putting that on top of wet paint, so nothing here is dry ever as I'm working through with it. It is important for this method of painting that all of your paint stays wet or stays like at least tacky, so that you can kind of continue to blend in all those colors to make it work. If you do have to take a step back from your piece and it does dry after a length of time, you can still work with this method. You just have to make sure to add a little bit extra white to whatever section you're working on next underneath before adding in the next layer of shadows and creases into the shirt. Another thing that's important to take note of is where the light is coming from. So as you can maybe tell here, it's kind of difficult to in this image, to be honest, because it's outside and it seemed like it was a bit of a cloudy day when the photo was taken, but there's always a light source. So the way that this figure is facing is slightly to the side, meaning I'm noticing that a lot of the light cast is from the left side of the image. So I'm making sure that the little line sections right on the left are painted with a slightly thicker layer of white just to kind of signify that there's a light source there. I spend a very long amount of time making sure that I smudge out all of the shadows to be very, very minor, because if you make the shadows too aggressive and unblended, you will find that it gets very textured. Some people actually do prefer this. It's all based on your style of whatever you want to do. So find whatever works best for you and that will all work out. You just have to find basically your own art style. The final thing that I'm doing is going in with straight up a dark shade of Payne's Gray and adding in where the absolute darkest section of all the shadows are. And yeah, that's it. Feel free to comment any questions that you guys may have. And yeah, bye!